I am out here seeing things over on the east side of Providence, near the Rochambeau camp. I could walk over to that monument, but I've got other plans here. It's only about a block away. They have a monument to George Washington and Rochambeau because this is where they established a camp during the Revolution up on this hill. And there's Camp Street nearby because of that. And there are signs that say, I guess they say W and R or W3R. It looks like they say war. It's kind of in this colonial font. Maybe I'll spot one of them. But basically those signs are just pointing to that memorial, which is not much to look at. It's just some 80-year-old plaque put up by Daughters of the American Revolution or something like that. Otherwise, it's a weekday afternoon here, relatively quiet, nice neighborhood. The trash bin's out. I'm drinking my coffee. Traveling west right now, a bit in the shadow. Got your obligatory saw blade. It's like Tarkovsky's Nostalgia. Although that saw blade is not quite enough in the distance. But that was something I identified with in that film because when I was a kid, it seemed like there was always somebody in the distance with a chainsaw, especially in the summer. And if you haven't seen Tarkovsky's Nostalgia, definitely check it out if you like artsy films. It's probably my favorite film of his. I like the general philosophy in it. But it's been forever since I've seen it. And certain things remind me of it, like the sound of the distant saw. And ruined churches. And things submerged in water, old buildings, ruins of buildings submerged in water. I love Erland Josephson's speech on the Marcus Aurelius statue. And this is going to point this to the side so you can see some of the kind of housing that's around here. And in fact, here I am down on Camp Street. Got all the dog walkers today. There's a nice funky lampshade. It's in pretty good condition. Somebody's throwing that out. But I don't really want it. I'm on the market. So just working my way down here, downhill, going towards South Main Street. Crossing camp. And going to the North Burial Ground, which is a place that I like to hike. I urge people to hike cemeteries if you've never done it. Do it a few times. And if you have any taboo about hiking around cemeteries, you'll lose it. And you'll see them for what they are, which is peaceful memorial gardens, hopefully. Some of them are flatter and have less character than others. There's some around here that are fantastic. And you get to commune with people of the past, people who came before you, people who made the world that you live in possible. I think it's important to show them that respect and acknowledge them, both, for your own humanity and your own understanding of reality. There's some gravestone, as I was, as you are, I once was, as I am, you will be. So we're all headed towards the grave. And, you spend time in graveyards, it's less of a big deal. Good part of reconciling with your mortality. And if you like history, which I do, you learn things. You find out, you get stories. Sometimes there's little stories on the stones. You will recognize names from around the city fathers, street names, neighborhood names, factory names. You'll see all those ancient, not even necessarily ancient, but older, previous generations, city fathers and company leaders, etc., soldiers, families, all kinds of stuff, mayors, governors, at least around here. This city of Providence here has been around for almost 400 years. The 400th anniversary will be coming up in 2036. But, or really that's the state, Rhode Island and Providence plantations from the charter. Founded by Roger Williams in 1636. The charter wasn't until the 1660s. And it's interesting to think about the evolution of places and the incorporation of cities. Providence was not incorporated as a city until the 1800s. I'm not sure when. I want to say the first mayor is in the cemetery where we're going. And maybe I'll spot that and narrow that down a little bit. We got to cross a big road up here. We'll get by the fast oil change place. I've been there once. It's okay. I resent paying big money for oil changes. It used to be cheap. And now it's hard to get it done for less than $35. I usually just bring it to my mechanic when something else needs to happen. Okay, a couple of one-way stretches here. Try not to get killed over here. It's a bit of a dangerous road. And I'm now on the side of the cemetery here, which you can kind of see the iron fence that goes around the whole thing. The main entrance is quite a bit further south, but I think the entrance that I'm going in was the original entrance. Which is at the bottom of Rochambeau Avenue. Up here by the bus stop. Guess I could have gone through the neighborhood a little more instead of coming out here on the busy road, but it's what it is. This is the route I take a lot. Going south now. Maybe you can tell by the fact that the sun is a bit more in the camera. This place is usually devoid of visitors. You'll get a couple of people visiting their relatives during the week. Just a few groundskeepers, maybe a hiker or two like me. There's one guy, Mashastic Critters, if you look him up on YouTube, he's got a channel where at this point he doesn't allow comments. But you can watch his little short videos on the wildlife that's in this cemetery. No, thank you. Let me get in here. spilling my coffee. Carrying on. I had a little mishap trying to get through the door. Coffee spilling on my hands. Quite a mess. But now, I'm in what I think is the main entrance to the cemetery, because as you come through here, you can see straight ahead there's two old trees that are just serving like an archway. And this is kind of a broad avenue that just cuts through the whole center. But I'm not sure, I've never really researched the origin of how the cemetery developed, where it first started, and all that. But for sure, the older section is to my left. But that doesn't mean the area I just walked through wasn't kind of more of a park. And in fact, over here, I've already got my first well-known resident. I mean, there's so many in here. But this is the grave of Horace Mann. You can scarcely read the stone anymore. But if I can get in there, he's a famous educator, and he did die in another state. But his body was moved here with his wife and his wife Mary. Dedicated by his wife Mary and friends in Providence to the memory of Horace Mann, who died in Yellow Spring, Ohio. I think that's where Dave Chappelle is from, Yellow Springs, Ohio. 1859, age 63. So, Horace Mann. He has various education buildings named after him. And I forget exactly what he did for education. But it was something. It's probably just establishing first primary schools or something like that. That's some beautiful color pine trees, or cedar really. Nice old stones. And here we have John Gorham, who was a silver manufacturer. And there, next to that giant tree, maybe you can see the groundskeepers. So as usual, the ones here. What I was saying about the Neshasik critters. So there's actually a river, kind of a tributary of the Neshasik, that runs through here and goes into a pond, and you'll actually get otters once in a while. Otherwise, it's just waterfowl and frogs and creatures like that. And there are also coyote in here. For whatever reason, I don't know what the story is with this proliferation of coyote in the country. But there's a little family that lives in here. So I think these trees are beautiful. Very kind of gothic looking. And of course, like all of these places, this is much different to look at in the springtime. Everything's in bloom. It's going to go downhill and then it hits the highway. So it's a pretty sizable cemetery. And I'm just sort of exploring some of the graves up here first. Some kind of a family plot. Turner, Chandler. It's a larger stone over here. Who is this? Read that. I have no idea. That is hard to read. I thought it was Garrett or something. Hard to say. Gladding, Monroe Gladding. You can Google some of these older names sometimes and get answers on who these people are. Now, there's a prominent stone. They were movers and shakers of some kind. And if you find an old captain of industry or military person, who knows? This is kind of an interesting view as we walk south. And that's the other thing I was going to say is the virtuous reason to hike around cemeteries. They were great in the pandemic. This is like the Central Park of Providence, but nobody comes because it's a cemetery. But, you've got this nice park to yourself, and that's what you wanted during the pandemic, was not a lot of people. But maybe you can see it back there, just sort of these nice silhouettes of all these stones, and then in the distance, the Capitol Dome, which currently has its independent man statue removed. Well, we might as well go over here. I think this is where the first mayor of Providence resides. And I forget his name. I'm going to find out in a minute. First I have Wayland, which anybody from this area will know. Wayland Square. This must be his stone, whoever that is. Francis Wayland, 1706 to 1863. Faithful unto death, I will give thee a crown of life. His wife Frances, Howard, son of Francis, Elizabeth, wife of H.L. So yeah, it looks like Francis Wayland is the guy. And here is the stone of the first mayor, I believe. Let's find out. It's on the stone. That's the only reason I know that. Samuel Bridgham. Yeah, that sounds... First mayor. My camera on there. Samuel Bridgham, first mayor of the city of Providence. In the previous video, I was hiking across Bridgham Farm, and I would assume that was his family farm in some capacity. It says born in Rehoboth, now Seekonk, so that is exactly where I was hiking earlier. Died in Providence, 1840. Son of Joseph and Martha Bridgham. So, let's see, there's a whole inscription here on the side. You can see that his kindness and affection as a son, husband, parent, and friend derived beauty from his mildness and strength, from his integrity as an advocate, legislator, and public officer. He united courtesy with caution, vigilance, and love of justice in all the relations of life. He was distinguished for unwavering fidelity. This ruling trait endeared him to the widow and fatherless, ministered to his professional success, and secured to him the implicit confidence of the community. That is a mouthful. So Mayor Bridgham, here we have his resume on the backside. For nearly 40 years, he was a lawyer, eminent for ability and something assiduity. That's a strange word. An active friend of education. He was 19 years president of the Benevolent Congregational Society, 8 years president, the School Committee of Providence, 19 years a trustee, 12 years chancellor of Brown University, prudent, sagacious, and impartial. He was 19 times elected by his fellow citizens of Providence, representative to the General Assembly, was 2-session speaker, and 4 years attorney general. An upright magistrate, he was 8 years mayor of Providence, filling that office from the first organization of the city government until his death. So, I don't know when that was exactly. How many times mayor? First organization, I didn't say when the first organization of the city was, but he was mayor unto death, which was 1840. So you got to figure Providence was probably founded in the 1820s or 30s. And prior to that, I don't really know what it would have been considered. Here's his parents, actually. Or, well, his mother, at least. Wife of Joseph Bridgham. Or no, maybe his kids. Yeah, born in Providence. I don't know, 1849, his grandkids, born after he was dead, died 1930. So there's a whole family plot here. This would take me a while to decipher. This is quite a motif on this stone. I kind of like that little statue on William Patton, oldest son of William something, Bridgham Patton. So again, this is Bridgham family plot. It's quite extensive. And they are next to the Whalens. So you got founding fathers over here. I don't know what Whalen did. Probably was a mayor as well. Maybe he was mayor after, let me just see when he died again. Francis Whalen died 1865. So, you know, who knows? Have to look him up. He may have been mayor after Bridgham. So this is a cool section here with lots of old stones, but not the oldest. The oldest are up ahead. You can see that. You're going to see these kind of classic. Here we can see the city skyline a little better. You're going to see these classic old New England graveyard stones over here. So I get into this section. But as you can see, there's just nobody around. So here we've got a lot of really old stones, all stuff from the 1700s. And if I poke around, I might even find a few late 1600s stones. And to the right, there is, you maybe see a bunch of flags waving. So we've got a kind of a World War II section over there. The factory in the background. So the city's kind of buzzing all around this place, but the place itself is quite peaceful. And some of these, of course, are so weathered, you know, which is cool. It gives it an interesting patina. But at present, I can't really read that. Whereas, maybe over here, in memory of John, son of Mr. John and Mrs. Freelove Sullivan, May 16th, 1759, age 4. This is a baby. 4 months and 22 days. Very sad. And same thing next door. We had infant mortality. We have a 7-month-old baby in Marcy. Over here, you can see all the lichen on the stone. And then I guess, I don't know where the parents are, honestly. Here's another interesting one. Sacred to the memory of mate Jeremiah Jackson, son of Captain Thomas Jackson, Matt Jackson, Mrs. Mary, his wife, born September 8, 1785, died at Suriname, January 18th, 1801. Who knows what kind of war was going on there. So each of these stones has a little story to tell. Again, this looks like another baby, Harry Ann Jackson. Girl named Harry Ann, daughter of Captain Thomas Jackson and Mary, his wife. So this would take me forever to go through all of these stones, but I thought I'd just give you a little sample. And they are all interesting to look at. So many nice carvings, classic time period here. Just to see, died in 1735. Same thing here. Some of them very clear, right? Like this one right here. Here lies the body of Anne Antrim, daughter of William and Sarah Antrim, who departed this life January 25th, 1735. 6 years old. He breaketh me with branch upon breach. Job. Book of Job, C16, verse 14. Chapter 16, verse 14. So, you know, you can spend some time here. These are all pretty involved. William Antrim again, 1753. But, you know, beautiful stones, fascinating looking all in their own right. Let's see who we have over here. You know, they've got these kind of above ground crypts, but there's no bodies in there. When I was a kid, I used to think there were bodies in there. Maybe there were when they first built them or something, and I don't know. There's no bodies in there now. They're just markers for these big slabs, which are completely eroded. But there's another beauty, a big giant one too. Abigail, the wife of Captain Rufus Hopkins. So this is the Hopkins family plot. These are city fathers. In fact, here's Stephen Hopkins. He's the patriarch and one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Of revolutionary fame, it says. United, or untested by his signature. Attested by his signature to the Declaration of our something in national independence, great in council, etc., etc. So, and for some reason, Sarah Scott Hopkins, wife, oh, it says wife, okay, but for some reason she's got an extra tablet on here. Born 1707, died 1753. Daughters of the American Revolution. So she must be one of the primary daughters of the Revolution. So many great stones in this section. I don't have the time to go through all of them. I'm just going to carry on here. But these are all fascinating in their own way. There's a nice, again, a one that's held up really well. Mrs. Freelove Windsor. The second time we've seen that Freelove name. In the late amiable comfort of Mr. Olney Windsor, with that S that looks like an F, that's a long S, who died February 17th, 1783. So some of these carvings just held up beautifully, which is surprising to some degree. Here's a super old looking stone, but is also probably the similar year, 1775, so even newer in a way than some of these other ones. But Bartholomew Sutton, 1775, 76 years old, born at Torstock in Old England. Jam G1 for Christ. I don't know what that means. Jam G1 for Christ did go before. Not sure what that means. Jam G. So anyway, carrying on. Some more beautiful old trees as well. That's that kind of park aspect. You really want to look at these cemeteries as parks. And there are some more beautiful and some less than this one. This one, for my taste, could use some repair. There's just a lot of stones that are down here, cracked, neglected, etc. And why the university, since this is a big university town and a lot of the founders of Brown University are buried here and their family members, why they can't get it together and turn this into a learning work project where students learn about history, historical preservation and restoration, etc. I have no idea. They've got the money. They don't care. That's my only conclusion. They simply do not care, because it wouldn't take much to have a program with 30 students a year who pass through the cemetery, and you put each one in charge of 3 stones to restore. That's a good way for them to learn about the restoration process and the history along the way. So don't ask me what's going on with that, but it bothers me that they don't care. There's a lot of old rich people in the cemetery, a lot of old rich families, again, city fathers. It's a bit of a crooked stone there, but kind of cool looking, the Martins. Yeah, why they don't care enough to just take a cursory look at this place and see. I mean, look at this. It's ridiculous. See what needs fixing. Evaluate it. That would be the first step. Coming in here and just evaluating the whole place and trying to rescue the things that need it first. Creating, priorities here. And in 20 years' time, this place would be a hell of a lot better shape than it is now. But again, nobody cares, so Anybody from Brown in the history or archaeology department, if they've got one, I assume they do. Any of that kind of stuff should take an interest. But anyway, so going back out from the old section now to where I first came in at Rochambeau. And I think actually I'm just going to head down the hill. Brown University founders. They are impressive stones, as you'd imagine. But yeah, it's a good place to hike because you do have a little elevation in here. Not much, but just enough to make it interesting. And that's the other thing you want in a cemetery hike or a visit is just something with some landscaping. Create some interest. But of course, everything is brown and dormant right now. There's an interesting little section here in front of us of a grouping. I think this is a home for aged women area. So, of course, this is something you don't see anymore. They have nursing homes now, but this is certainly homes for aged women. Which just attests to the fact that women generally live longer than men. Yep, sure enough. The last home for aged women on Earth. Very ominous. So I don't know if they're in competition with other planets. But on the planet Earth, that was the last home for the aged women. I didn't see a year on there. It might have been on the back. I'm pretty sure it's mid-1800s. But all of the women, which look like they died in the early 20th century, were individually marked around that. So now we're in a bit of a wide open plain, probably getting closer to the noise of the highway. I'm not sure how well the microphone's picking that up, but my ears are certainly picking it up. But this is still relatively more peaceful than the streets around it. We're getting into somewhat newer sections, though. If you look up on the hill there's a kind of a stone building up there, red stone building with a slate roof, and that's a Brown University family crypt, Brown family crypt. They're not just a university, they're a family first. So I'll circle back on that one. But Brown started as a small school in the 1700s and expanded. I want to say they actually started in Warren, Rhode Island for some reason. And then they expanded up to Providence and just kept growing through the years. These old venerable institutions, that's how it happens, They just put down roots at the beginning of the country, and the next thing you know, 100 to 200 years goes by, and you've got yourself an institution with a large endowment. So Brown is an Ivy League school with a large endowment, though it isn't anything like Harvard, which is like a small country in terms of its endowment. At least that's the current state of things. Who knows if that will change. Actually, somebody jogging over there. To me, that's going a little far. I think, walking is fine. But I don't want to turn this into a gymnasium. This is a place to honor people of the past. And so this is one of my favorite stones up here. This is the grave of Captain George Child. And it says here, in memory of Captain George Child, born at Warren, Rhode Island, September 18th, 1803, passed from earth life by the burning of the steamboat Lexington in Long Island Sound, January 13th, 1840. People don't realize, I think, how many steamship disasters there were in the 19th century. Ever since the Titanic, that just kind of took all the oxygen out of the room. Everybody pays homage and learns about the history and recreates in film and other things the sinking of the Titanic, which, was a steamship, and it has its own story, which I don't need to recount here, about why they do that. But you look up steamship disasters in the 19th century, and you will see a long list of tragedy, many with numbers that compete with, if not surpass, the Titanic. And the Lexington was just kind of a regular ferry ship that transported people from Fall River, maybe Boston, Fall River, Stonington to Connecticut, Newport, Rhode Island, over to New York City. Had a regular route. And Captain Child was just filling in for somebody. And they had overstacked a bunch of cotton bales, or wool, I'm not sure if it was cotton or wool, next to the smokestacks, which gets super hot because, these are coal-powered steamships. They burn coal to boil water and make steam. And ship caught on fire, and this was in the dead of winter. So everybody that went into the Long Island Sound, with the exception of like 2 or 3 people, died, or a handful. You can look it up, mention it in the comments. But that was a rough one, especially for the young captain who was just filling in. And that was well known in its day. This is, 1843, something like that? So this is long before the Titanic. And they had made a print, you can look it up, the burning of the Lexington, steamship Lexington, by Currier and Ives. It was like their first big selling print. And so Captain Child, they must have retrieved him from the Sound and then buried him there. And there's a Child Street in Warren, which I always thought was named because that's where the schools were. But I assume now that it was named after Captain George Child. You can also find a nice kind of porcelain painting, like a cameo, a small one, of him that is owned by some museum in Connecticut, maybe the Wadsworth. And you can get a look at his face. Interesting person, interesting story, interesting reminder of the era of steamships. A lot of crows up ahead. A lot of crows here, but I'm coming to the place where that Moshassuck River empties into a pond, or runs into a pond. I'm not sure how much it empties there. If it kind of keeps going underground, or what exactly is happening with the geology and terrain around here. Some squirrels. I don't usually see a lot of critters over here, so it's amazing to me that the guy has a channel where he films wildlife here, because you got to sit for a long time to catch anything. But we'll just take a look, because that's already his domain. Moshassuck Critters. Nice channel. Usually really short videos. Okay, so here's our little pond. Some geese on the opposite shore. And again, it's warming up today. It's 50 degrees, pretty warm for February. So no more ice. And I'm gonna head up the hill here to this Brown University, Brown family plot that I've been referencing. But yeah, we've got some interesting old trees here, very gnarly. Classic cemetery vibe, New England cemetery vibe. And they do have events here, which I don't know if I'm too keen on that either. They've got different events around Halloween where they'll have tours. That's okay, I think. But then I don't know, there's some folk event here, like folk music, or which is cool too, because they're doing historical stuff, playing old-timey historic songs. But I don't think these places should be turned into concert venues. We've got some geese just hanging out on the trail. Quite a few of them, little family. And that means there's no coyotes around, because if there were, they would not be hanging out here like this, I think. Pretty sure. Now, this is where the coyotes usually are. They're usually here or way down there somewhere. I do see some creatures in the distance, but no, those are more geese. No coyotes. They're usually out there on the horizon, because from that northern end you can get out to the woods. So question is, how am I going to get up here? Sorry for spinning around like that, but that's one nice thing about this camera, is it does compensate for my movements quite a bit. And we got to climb this hill. A little mossy here. Quite the strong sun. Another goose hanging out up here. They're all over the place today. I wonder what they're up to. I guess they just looking for food around here. They're not so skittish. Cute. Another one over here. And another one here, like sentinels guarding the Brown family plot. Yeah. What is up to? Alright. Just passing by, buddy. Okay. Oh, looks like there's groundskeepers up here. Hopefully they're not going to harass me. I'll go up this side thing anyway. Also, because somebody has visited this recently and laid quite a set of wreaths and memorials. Let's see what's going on here at the Webstone. I don't know who this is. Thomas Webb, born in Boston, Mass. 1771, died in Cleveland, Ohio, 1819. His remains were deposited beneath this monument. First president of the, I can't read it, something and something society. Vandel and Hayden Society? Never heard of it. Boston. In music still, his soul is inspire something of the winds. It's tough. It's corroded. Something musical here. He's got the lyre up top on his stone. So this is some pioneer of music. Some poinsettias down here and some flags. It just says in memoriam. It's a what do you call it? Masons. Let's get that a little bit better placement there. Just fixing this flag. So there's some kind of a, I don't know what that is, a St. Andrew's cross or something. And then you've got Freemasons over here. So I don't know who this guy was. Maybe look him up. Thomas Webb. And the groundskeepers just sort of slunk off while I was looking at his stone. I think they saw I fixed his flag, and they're like, all right, this guy's not causing trouble. That's right. I'm promoting this place. I'm improving it where I can. But here we are. Now you can see clearly the Brown family plot. There's that nice red stone building with a slate roof and some beautiful Celtic crosses here. This one has the various Christian symbols on here. You've got, well, it's hard to see in the shadow. I can see it quite clearly, but let me just see here. This is Harold Brown, son of John Carter Brown, and Sophia, his wife. The other one is a bit worn. I can't read it. Looks like they're kids. But you know, you've got Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You've got Mark the lion on the right, maybe. One is a lion, one is a winged ox. They're both winged. Hard to tell which is which. But again, yeah, this is too dark, too much in the shadow. And you got the Lamb of God in the middle, which was the forerunner of Christ on the cross, just a symbol of the Lamb. But yeah, here we have John Nicholas Brown, only son of John Nicholas Brown, and something Seaton, King's Lion. Historical collector, musician, historian, collector, musician, vivifier, scholar, sailor, humanist, who brought art into life and made of life and art. 1979. So, died aboard the Malagrena. That's not nice. What happened there? Sounds like a ship disaster, or just that natural causes on a steamship. Natalie Bayard Brown, 1869 to 1950. Lord, I have loved the habitation of thy house. John Nicholas Brown, elder son of John Carter Brown, died in New York City, May 1906. Until the day break, and the shadow flee away. And the shadows flee away. There's no inscription on this little red house. I don't know if that's a groundskeeping thing. It's got to be a crypt. But here we have the grave, again in the shadow, of Nicholas Brown. And a something merchant, eminent, must be eminent. The friend of the friendless, once again, the patron, the patron of learning. The bona fide actor of the insane. The benefactor of the insane, bona fide actor. And this is getting tough over here now with the sun. I can't. Something in very good design. 1769 to 1841. And again, even the inscription is tough. Him that was ready, him that was ready, something was upon me, and I caused something to sing in my head to sing of joy. I don't know. But anyway, so these are Brown University founders. A bunch of stones there. And then this one is all worn away. So we don't know if that's his wife or what. Hard to say. He'd have to bring rubbings and such. But, you know, kind of an interesting view here anyway. And again, the red stone building. So we're sort of at the peak of this North Burial Ground Cemetery. I've got Gorham's to the left, and the back of this stone is quite beautiful and much more visible in the light than the front. So take a gander at that thing. That's something else. That's a Celtic cross. So that's the Brown family plot. There are Browns all over the cemetery though, but this is just the origin family, I suppose. And the stones up here also, as you can imagine, are of prominent people. Joseph Butler, sacred to the memory of Mr. Joseph Butler, son of Samuel Butler and Mary his wife, who died on a passage from the West Indies, March 7, 1788. The most promising abilities joined to inviolable integrity and embellished by engaging manners, consecrated maybe the esteem, or conciliated the esteem of all his acquaintance, and rendered his death a subject of sincere regret, a regret which, while expressive of heart felt sorrow, bestowed the most affecting encomium on his merit. These are words we don't use anymore. His amiable character will continue to live in the bleeding remembrance of his afflicted parents and numerous friends until they yield to the universal sway of the King of Terrors, before whose scepter all mankind are made to bow. No spot on earth but has supplied a grave, and human souls the spacious ocean pave. I don't know what that means, but I'll have to think about it. But it's a good one. So this is some kind of Butler family plot. I assume these are the founders of Butler Hospital. There's a big stone here, and beneath this stone repose the remains of Samuel Butler. Strength of intellect and soundness of judgment, allied to purity of intention, guided his conduct while in life. His habits were frugal and temperate. He was plain and sincere in his manner, a faithful friend and good neighbor, an affectionate husband and indulgent parent. His occupation was commercial, prosecuted with diligence, punctuality, and reputation. He paid his great last debt on the 3rd day of December 1814. And his wife, Sarah, Stephen Whipple, daughter of Stephen Whipple, 1811, 50th. She was 50 years old. I'm not going to get into it, but I don't know, maybe that's the son of the guy who founded Butler Hospital. The remains of Cyrus Butler, together with those, again, this is the shadow, so I'm not even going to bother, I can't read it, but Cyrus Butler, maybe he's the founder. I don't know. We can look up Butler Hospital and see what's going on there with his family. I don't want to spend too much time on it. Here's it again. So we're away from the Brown family plot, but Anne Crawford Allen Brown, daughter of Crawford Allen, widow of John Carter Brown II. So there's more Browns over here. There's this whole circle of folks here. And I'm sure many more interesting graves that I'm only scraping the surface of here. So back into the fray here. And, you know, it's beautiful in a way. The whole place is beautiful in its own way. It has a patina. It has character. It is unique. It is not replicated anywhere. And it could be better, I think. It needs restoration here and there. It could use some landscaping. You've got dead trees, which, that's fine. Gives it a certain look. But you need to plant new ones, too. And I like these old stones from the early 19th century. Here's another one here, very similar to George Child. It's a style we don't see too much. We don't see at all anymore. It's different. It's gone. It's a bygone era. Here we have some Thayers and Browns, which, again, this is Providence stuff. There's a Thayer Street, which is at the heart of Brown University. It's sort of their commercial street. So I'm sure these are descendants. Usually the streets in Providence are named for the people who first were given land grants by Roger Williams, or who purchased land and what have you. The first settlers of Providence, they had tracks that went all the way from here on North and South Main Street across the east side, so essentially farming tracks. But then as those things evolved over time, they just turned into residential plots and institutional buildings, etc. And then all that's left is the street name and the original inhabitants. And Providence has changed quite a lot. We're not in the heart of downtown. We're just north of it. But we get downtown. It's got, this Moshassuck River that runs through it. But it used to be more of a pond down there. So it's all been filled in. The landscape has changed quite a bit. But the Narragansett Bay essentially still empties out into Providence, or the river empties into the bay. But, essentially there is still an inlet there, kind of an old port that goes right into downtown. And that used to open into a pond, but not anymore, and it's sort of blocked with bridges, so only, gondolas and small boats can go through. So the landscape has changed, the content has changed, and that's what it is to move through space and time, which is what we're all doing all the time. So you want to gain awareness about how places appeared before humans got there, and how they changed over time, and how what is here in front of you is influenced by those changes. I guess that's part of what is considered psychogeography. And it's fun to think about those things, to think about time and change and people who've come and gone. And not just these city fathers and founders and captains of industry, but regular people, all these regular folks whose graves I'm walking through here. They all have stories, and if you're interested enough, you can drill down on some of them. And so here I come again, back around to where I first entered, at the bus stop in Rochambeau. And I think that's going to be enough for today. So thank you for staying this long and watching. It was a fun walk for me as usual. And I'll see you again.